Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's all tiki-taka'd out. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
I'm certainly something. That game was a game of soccer.
It certainly was. All right, so we normally do spoiler alerts, but we're going to assume that you know that Russia v Spain was already spoiled from the moment it kicked off. The score was 1-1, extra time. Yeah. Russia wins on penalty kicks. But, it was tough to watch.
It sure was.
Shall we get into why it was tough to watch? Because there are reasons and there are people to blame. Mm-hmm. So court is assembled.
Okay.
In session.
So do you want to talk general game? Do you want to talk specific moments? How would you like to start?
I'd like to go general first.
Sure.
Before we get to the 2 goals and maybe the penalty kicks, I want to talk generally why this game was so dull. And I'm going to put it to you that I think it's essentially the blame falls mainly on Spain.
Yes.
The blame for this game falls mainly on Spain.
There we go. I was trying to figure out how to fit in planes, but it didn't quite work.
Spain's approach of possession first.
I thought you were still going, by the way.
don't play any risky passes is, one, the reason this game was so dull, because they knew Russia would defend, and B, also the reason they didn't score, because they were too risk-averse. They prioritised possession so much that they couldn't create any chances, couldn't get the ball to Diego Costa.
Yes.
Yes?
Oh, you want more? Because that's pretty much it. You've pretty much done it. I mean, that really was the story of this game. I think especially so after Spain took the lead so early in the 11th minute. I think from that point on, they were sort of, we'll possess, we'll move the ball around, we'll frustrate Russia, they'll get stretched, we'll have more opportunities. And then I think Russia scored. Again, we'll get to the specifics in a moment. But I genuinely believe that was sort of a frightening wake-up call almost for Spain of it can just take a moment, something can go against us, suddenly it's 1-1. And I think that really limited what they tried to do from then on. We watched the tactical cam after Russia scored, and it really...
Matchsticks in our eyes.
It really was just a lot of hesitant passing. It was maybe getting the ball forward, but eventually recycling it back to the center backs. I'm assuming those two, Pique and Ramos, had the most passes completed of anybody on the team because there was nobody willing to take a risk to try to play those balls that would split through the banks of 4 or the banks of 8 or 10 or whatever Russia had. It
was like, I don't want to hit this too hard, but it was like watching a giant rondo. You know the 5v2 keep-away game that people play in practice? It was like watching a giant version of that where the goal was always just to keep the ball. And you could play it into Costa or try and split 2 defenders and make some forward progress, but then you risk losing possession. So the easier pass is always... go back to the left back, go back to another midfielder, just keep moving the ball around, and surely something will open up. And I think, to flip this around, we have to give some credit to Russia.
Yeah, I mean, for the defensive effort?
Yes, and the discipline and the refusal to chase, the refusal to get pulled out of shape.
Sure. I mean, there are other things I would like to say about this Russia team, but they're all allegations, so I'll just let that be. I think they looked very fit at the end, I'll say that. But yes, I think the fact that they were able to keep the shape, you look at some of what Diego Costa was trying to do up top, and I think he was trying to do his Costa thing, not like do the stepping on the foot, annoying people, but the drifting wide. He never
had a chance, right?
Really didn't.
The referee wasn't even looking in his direction.
Not so much. But it was like he was trying to do the drift wide, pull a center back with him, because Russia had 3. They were content to sort of send one with him, but even then they weren't too worried about Diego Costa on the wing with the ball. I think they were really much more concerned about Spain trying to have those passes through like we saw them do against, say, Morocco, where they kept getting opportunities to combine between Isco and Iniesta. They found space in behind. They were able to exploit that.
Because Morocco would go after the ball.
Yeah.
That's the point. Morocco would, in some way, press, at least chase the ball, whereas Russia refused to leave what became a 5-4-1. That's what I'm going to call it, 5-4-1 with Zuba up front. I think Golovin was essentially the attacking midfielder, so it's, a 3-5-1-1? But really it's a 5-4-1 by the time Spain have got the ball, and they just never got pulled out of shape, and Spain didn't do anything to pull them out of shape, and that happened for 2 hours. 2 hours. Taylor?
To continue your analogy of the rondo, the 5v2, it was like the Russia were the 2 in the middle, but there was no punitive consequences for being in the middle. Usually it's 10 passes is the point. If you get to 5 points, then there's something. You got to run or something like that.
And this was just in the middle on their phone.
Yeah, it was basically okay, we'll just be here till the game starts. Whatever, that's fine. We don't care. Continue to pass the ball. Oh, you've got the ball now? And it almost kind of fits because there is that point in the rondo when the other people have been in there for so long that you're like, I feel kind of bad. And maybe you'll mess it up, or maybe you'll just kind of get a little bit careless, try something foolish, and then it gives them the opportunity. And that sort of is what happened, is that Spain occasionally would cough the ball up. They would make a foolish pass, or they would maybe, just maybe, try to do something to get between the Russian defenders, and Russia would capitalize and counter. And that was kind of, I think, enough for Spain to be like, never mind, we're not going to do that anymore.
Should we get to the goals then?
Sure.
So, I mean, we're going to discuss basically all the good chances because those are the 2 goals.
Sure.
And even Spain's only goal, was an own goal from Ignashevich. Sergio Ramos does not get a touch at all.
No, he does not, and it's a grapple at it's a grapple off a free kick after I believe it was Nacho gets cleared out by Zhirkov. It's a bad tackle.
He took his kneecap off, right?
Yeah, and then to know that Zhirkov was the one who made way at halftime, I wonder if that also maybe had some negative impact on him. But either way, it's ball in. It's Sergio Ramos grappling with Ignashevich at the back post, or vice versa, depending on your perspective. Goes off Ignashevich, goes in, own goal, 1-0 Spain.
I really think your view of this goal depends on which national anthem you sing.
Yep.
I think if you're Spanish, then you could say Ignashevich was trying to take Ramos down, and it's almost his own fault that as he fell, it hit him in the heel or whatever it did and went in. I think if you're Russian, if you sing the Russian national anthem, you would say, this is unfair. Yep. Ramos was pulling our defender to the floor and caused him to score an own goal. And I would lean towards the latter. I think this is some Luis Suarezing from Sergio Ramos.
I agree. I've talked about this before, how like one of the things you can do if you're running neck and neck with a player, you lock arms with them. The referee can't really see that. You fall forward, they'll fall on top of you, and it looks like you've been clipped or dragged down. This is kind of the same, in my opinion, that I think Ramos, as soon as Ignashevich, not to his credit, but to his detriment, I guess, Ignashevich, I think, takes a very bad defensive approach. He's facing the free kick, then he turns around to see where Ramos is, not Ronaldo, and then Ignashevich hedges back to the ball, so he can't really see what's coming in. Ramos can, and I think you see they both kind of grab each other, and I'm inclined to believe that Ramos doesn't let go and falls backwards, and it 100% looks like, especially, and even with the benefit of replay, it still is maybe a toss-up, but I think, from my opinion, 100% it's Ramos pulling that momentum forward from Ignashevich, so it looks like he gets tackled and brought down to the box. Doesn't really matter because
he's trying for a penalty kick, right? And I would just remind people that this is the same Sergio Ramos who locked arms with Mohamed Salah and dragged them both to the floor. Ramos has previous here. He does this a lot. It's a very clever trick that he pulls because he can make the fall happen, and it's 50-50. You can make it look like maybe it's the other guy dragging you down, right?
Yeah, so it goes 1-0. Ramos runs off celebrating as though he scored. Usually you can tell it's an own goal because the camera guys don't know who to cut to. It's the player celebrating or the defender. Usually they end up on the defender. Here they stuck with Ramos right up until it was very obvious on the replay that Ignashevich was to blame.
So let's talk about the other Spanish centre-back, because just before half-time, as Spain were coasting, they looked like tick-attacking their way all the way to victory. Pique jumps from it. Is it a free kick or a corner? It's a corner kick, right? Pique jumps with Zuba, puts his arms in the air. Zuba gets ahead to it, straight into Pique's, I think it's his right arm, which is high up in the air, like he thinks he's going to answer a question in class. Right?
And again, I feel like if we have Spanish listeners, they're not going to love this segment of the show. Because,
I imagine they'll be frustrated with their team, though.
I mean, I would hope so. But I would say this is 100% correct, in my opinion.
The penalty call?
It's not just because his arms are like in an unnatural position, because I know we've had that debate about when you jump, your arms go up. In this case, if you watch it again, Pique jumps and his arms are up. And then they go further up. Like he has completed the momentum he needs or whatever physics he needs to get up in the air. And then he puts that arm up. And the only reason I can believe in here is that he's trying to distract. He's trying to put the arms up so that it puts Ignashevich off, whomever's coming in for the header. It just distracts them a little bit so that maybe they're not making as clean of contact as they might, or maybe they don't go up for it at all. But here, they go up for it, and it's headed right into his outstretched arm.
I think I've said this before, so I'll just say it again very quickly. I have sympathy with defenders when your arm's in the air and the ball is very close. And I think the referee's supposed to take that into account, right? The distance between where the ball is struck and where the arm is. But at this World Cup, it's been very consistently called that almost distance, if your arm's in a weird spot and you're gaining an advantage from it, distance doesn't seem to matter, right? Cedric Suarez for Portugal got done with this. So this was always going to be a penalty kick. And Zuba smashes it.
He does. I would say two things more about that. Number one, yes, absolutely smashed. Very well taken. No hesitation about that. That's what you want from your penalty taker.
Maybe a preview of what was to come?
there is that. Number two is just that it's also worth noting, not a VAR call. The referee calls this a penalty straight away. Like, I think he probably gets a word from the AR or from the fourth official.
VAR probably check it, right? This is worth going over again. VAR always have another look at something, and if there was something the referee needed to rewatch, they would have told him. But this was so obvious that there's no need.
But I compare it to the one with Cedric in the Portugal-Iran game, where it was headed down onto his arm. Same thing with Marcos Rojo, where he headed onto his own arm. You have those moments where maybe the referee missed something, so VAR says, why don't you take a look just to be certain? I think for Cedric, it was a VAR decision that led to the penalty. Here, like, VAR maybe said, like, yeah, you made the right call, but the referee calls it right out. He says that's a penalty. He spotted it.
Well done to a ref for making a VAR-less call.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
All right, so it's 1-1.
Yeah.
And then essentially the game just plays out as we described earlier on, right? Spain, always too safe, never taking risks. You can see them starting to panic as it gets closer to 2 hours. The only shout they really have is a penalty kick shout. Is it in extra time or is it in the...
It is in extra time.
In extra time. So Ramos goes down with Kutapov this time, and I think Gerard Piqué gets tugged by Ignashevich. I've got more sympathy with Piqué's appeal. I have 0 with Sergio Ramos because I think on this call, Ramos ends up on the floor. I think he's doing exactly what we talked about a few minutes ago, where he initiates contact, he drags Kutapov down, tries to make it look like a penalty kick.
And I think this is why we were both much more inclined to say the first one was this, watching this almost exact sequence happen again, and it really is similar. He ends up facing the wrong way, Ramos does. He's rolling on the ground, but it very much seems like he is trying to pull the player with him.
Correlation does imply penalty cheating.
True. But I'm with you that the one that I think maybe deserved a second look, I'm guessing the referee said, yeah, I saw it went both ways, is Ignashevich on Piqué, because not only does he hold the jersey on both sides, but he kind of uses his like hip/leg to sort of hip toss Piqué, so Piqué can't jump to meet the ball. I watched that one a bunch to see like maybe he thought the ball was unplayable, that Piqué wasn't going to be able to head it. It seems like he very much could have, so that's one where I have a bit more sympathy for Spain.
Okay, but I think, if we're being honest, as neutral observers, we just felt Spain did not deserve a victory here because they were too timid in what they were doing.
I would agree. I mean, not to say that Russia, like, if a team defends for 120 minutes, I don't know if that makes them heroic. Like, I mean, they definitely did what they needed to do to get the result, but they were definitely playing for penalties and content.
Russia today will disagree.
True. But I think, you know what I mean, though, that like you can praise somebody for being defensively solid.
Yeah.
But it was very clear to me that they were happy to let this one go to penalties.
I agree, and I think when it got to penalties, you definitely had the feeling that because Russia were happy to get there, Spain were not happy to get there. They looked kind of disappointed and almost semi-defeated before the penalty kicks were taken. And no amount of Piqué calmness and swagger, Gerard Piqué swagger, could pull it off for them. So let's get to it. Who misses for Spain?
It was Koke.
You made good notes.
I did. Koke and Iago Aspas. Iago Aspas misses the final one.
Any sort of highlights or insights from the penalty kicks?
I thought it was pretty interesting. Whether or not this was a random thing or a deliberate thing, Akinfeev rotated every single time. So the first time he dove to his Akinfeev's right, Iniesta's left. And then from then on, it just went back and forth. Yeah, and it didn't really matter because I think so many of them were right down the middle that he eventually made the foot save. He did make his save on Koke was with his hands, but the final one with a kick save. For his part, David De Gea went to David De Gea's right every single time.
All right.
Including the one that went underneath him.
So maybe that's worth noting for future reference is if you see Akinfeev in a penalty shootout again, maybe in the quarterfinals. I mean, because Russia, it does seem like their path forward is play for penalties. Keep an eye on Akinfeev alternating, diving to the right and diving to the left.
And if you're new to soccer, I just want to add, like, this is the reason why we say, or if you're relatively new, this is why we say you never go, like, in the middle of the goal. You either want to go high to the corner, which is very difficult, or you put that ball on the ground.
Unless you're Andrea Pirlo. There's an important asterisk there.
True. But Golovin, it's Golovin who puts it under De Gea. De Gea guesses right. I don't necessarily blame David De Gea. Again, maybe that's my bias, but I think part of it is when a keeper's going full stretch dive, if you put it on the ground, it's really difficult for them to make that sort of flailing kick save that they might be able to make if it's in the air.
There you go. All right, final thing I want to talk about is this Spain team, because Fernando Hierro was the coach, but 48 hours previous, he was the technical, to the start of the tournament, he was the technical director. So if you don't know the backstory, Lopetegui, who was the Spain coach for the past 2 years, accepted a job offer from Real Madrid 48 hours before. The Federation were furious because they hadn't been informed until 5 minutes before the announcement. So they fired him. They fired the coach who had been unbeaten for 2 years and replaced him with the technical director.
There were no consequences.
There were, right?
Yeah.
So my contention, is that the right word, is that the Sampaoli, Leo Messi, Argentina drama has massively overshadowed what should have been the most controversial, dramatic coaching weird change-up at the 2018 World Cup. And I think because Spain more or less stumbled through the group stage but got through, we didn't really start thinking about it until we saw a Spain not looking like they had a good plan at the World Cup, which is today.
I mean, I would say, I think part of it is also that, like, I would compare it to a game that if we're, like, emotionally caught up in and watching, when you go back and rewatch, you see things differently. Yeah. I think that's what this Spain team will be, that you go back and look at their performances in the tournament, 3-3 draw with Portugal. Like, okay, it's Portugal. They're the reigning European champions. They're very good, probably the best team in this group. A draw there's fine. Oh, they get the win against Iran. No, it wasn't very pretty, but so be it. And then you kind of, like, they got the result they needed against Morocco. Everybody knew they were going to go through. So you can see it from that way, but then you look at it again and it's like, well, they conceded 3 against Portugal and they really struggled to break down Iran. And they conceded 2 against Morocco and didn't look that good. Now they get knocked out in the first round against Russia, and it kind of changes that narrative into, they were never really prepared, and it didn't feel like they ever had that sort of killer instinct where they knew what to do to change it up when they needed goals, aside from try to have Nacho hit a once-in-a-lifetime strike. and like, even you and I, when we were looking at this team, when we were thinking about players they could bring in, like, you can bring in Iago Aspas, you can bring in Rodrigo, but they don't have that, like, I guess one way to put it is, like, they don't have that name recognition, but it is also, there's no plan B, that it just felt like it was they can bring in another player who's going to help with possession. And that's not really what they needed help with in this game.
Well, before we move on and wipe this game from the hard drive of our DVR and our brain forever, there's maybe just 2 more things that I'd like to add. One thing that was noticeably missing from Spain was the counter press. And I bring this up because it was a key part of what Spain used to do really well. And haven't we picked it out as a thing that has been super effective and present in almost every World Cup game?
No, I don't think so. You mean the yo-yo press? Call it by its proper name.
Yo-yo press. Yes. Which basically is you try to make a pass forward, you lose possession, the other team tries to counterattack you, you win the ball off them as they're counterattacking. Because Spain never tried a tough enough ball to turn it over, they never got the chance to counterpress. That would have been an effective strategy.
But they did complete over 1,100 passes in 2 hours, so what more do you need?
That is incredible. Was it attempted or completed?
I think completed.
It was probably both, right? Because the passes were so safe that they probably had a very high completion percentage.
So there's that.
Which once again proves that pass completion is not a good stat to live by.
100%.
Final thing, I think we saw a couple of people tweeting, I think correctly, that the Russian forwards, first Zuba and then Smolov, were doing a good job of blocking off Sergio Busquets, who is normally Spain's chief distributor of soccer balls. I would argue in many ways that shouldn't matter because the rest of the Spanish players could have been brave enough to make forward passes, right? Yeah. Busquets does the eyes very well, does the fake passes very well. Other people needed to step up and do it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if you're saying it all breaks down because your defensive holding midfielder is being man-marked, there are plenty of other players who are getting possession of the ball and not necessarily utilizing it in the best way.
Even though he's Sergi Busquets, other people
Sergi
can
Busquets.
do it. Other people can raise it up.
There we are.
Okay, before we move on to talk Croatia-Denmark, today's show is sponsored by Hims. Hims is a hair loss solution that is medically proven. 66% of men lose their hair by age 35, and I think you could see that in some of these World Cup games.
Yeah, I'm not trying to throw stones here.
Let's not name names.
Yeah, but I will say from watching from a few different angles, especially the tactics cam, I'm just saying some of the folks at this tournament, participating in this tournament, that is, they might go home, watch some footage and think, uh-oh, that wasn't there before.
And if you are someone who is concerned about losing your hair, there is a solution, and it is medically proven, right? This is not snake oil. This is not, like gas station, those weird pills that they sell. Those are definitely not prescription.
Actually what they're officially branded as in the gas station is gas station weird pills.
So there is a lot of medically proven stuff that used to be very expensive and you used to have to go and see your doctor. Now, generic equivalents of these name brand prescriptions are available. But you can do it without going to see your doctor, without sitting in a waiting room, without having an embarrassing conversation. You can do it all online at forhims.com/total soccer.
That's right. Hims connects you with real doctors, medical grade solutions, no waiting room, no awkward visits. As you said, Daryl, you just go online, you get what you need, and you get that hair dealt with.
And we are very proud that we're collaborating with Snoop Dogg on this commercial.
I don't know if he knows that, but
he
yes,
doesn't know that, but I do, because you've seen the Snoop Dogg Hims commercials during the World Cup.
Indeed.
We often meet up. We have a weekly meeting where Taylor and I and Snoop Dogg
session.
talk about it. And I keep wanting to talk about doggy style, and he keeps saying, let's not live in the past, Daryl. Let's not live in the past.
Obviously. So our listeners can get a trial month of Hims for just $5 today. Right now, while supplies last, see website for full details. This could cost hundreds of dollars if you went to a doctor or pharmacy.
So you go to forhims.com/total soccer. Spelled out, that is forhims.com/total soccer. Forhims.com/total soccer. The link will be in the show notes. All right, before our next meeting with Snoop Dogg, let's talk Croatia, Denmark.
If we must.
If we must, was it that bad?
I mean, the first 4 minutes were great.
All right, well, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
It finished, 1-1 in normal time and then extra time. And then Croatia won on penalty kicks. But yeah, it looked like it was going to be an absolute goal fest based on the first 4 minutes. So should we start with the most exciting part of this game?
Sure, let's do it.
The most promising part of this game.
And while I think the 2 goals inside of 4 minutes are like a pretty good setting for like, wow, this was really crazy up front, I think straight from kickoff is the thing that I want to talk about, because in the first 22 seconds, I think it's Denmark kickoff. They have the ball, they kick it long. The ball does not touch the ground for 22 seconds. It is up in the air.
10 touches, I think?
Yeah, 10 touches in the air, or mostly with the head, a couple with the feet at the very end.
Yeah.
But that tells you kind of a good indicator of the chaos of this game in the opening minutes.
And actually, just to go bigger picture, I think the chaos of the first 4 minutes informs the much less chaos.
Agreed.
The much calmer
100%.
Following 116 minutes? Because everyone was scared for all of that to happen again.
Yes.
But listeners, I do want you to picture Taylor and I rewatching at half-time the first 4 minutes and literally counting the number of times the ball was headed and kept in the air. We got to 10.
With increasing glee and like 1, 2, 3, like we got louder and louder.
It was the antidote to Spain's passing, was Croatia and Denmark just bashing the ball in the air.
And it really
Soccer
does.
Tennis.
As I said, 22 seconds, it ends with the ball being put out for a throw-in.
Vida, I believe, kind of scrambles it out to the sideline. He's like, enough of this, let's get it out.
And then that's the throw. The throw-in comes in, it bounces around to the box, it ends up in the back of the net, and it's 1-0 to Denmark.
Can we talk about this throw, though? Because, I watched this, I think I saw this before you, which was my fault because I put our food order in late, so Taylor was a couple of minutes late to this game. Jonas Knudsen, Denmark's left-back, goes and takes it from the right side. So he's very much the key long throw guy for Denmark. He throws it in, and what was weird to me was seeing it, and so many Croatian players looked like they were going to head it clear. They were in position to head it clear. I saw Mandzukic take a step ready to go, but then everybody misses it, and the ball drops to Thomas Delaney, who does very nicely, eventually gets it to Jorgensen. Matthias Jorgensen gets Huddersfield's first goal at a World Cup. Very nice. But my question for you, Taylor, was... why does no one get this ball while it's in the air? Why does it go all the way to Thomas Delaney?
Yeah, and I think I have an answer. I could be wrong.
I think you're right.
I often am. But in this case, I think it's because Knudsen is doing an illegal throw. I think he's basically throwing with predominantly one arm.
Yep.
You are technically supposed to use both arms equally to throw the ball in. So there shouldn't be a considerable amount of spin, certainly not a side spin. I think there is with this, which indicates that basically he's using his dominant arm to throw the ball, and then the other arm is sort of there as well. But because you're throwing with one arm, you're doing it at a very different trajectory than you would be just throwing it in with two, so it gets a weird spin on it, and I think as a result, it kind of knuckles at the last second, and that's why everybody's lined up on the 6-yard box, ready to head it clear. It drops about 1.5 yards behind the 6-yard box.
It's ever so slightly an outswinger, which a throw-in should not be, because the two-hand thing means that throw-ins should be dead straight, right? This is an outswinger. This is why you see Mandzukic and Lovren and all the potential Croatian headerers take a step forward and then a step back, and then they don't get it. Delaney gets there first. Matthias Jorgensen bundles it over the line, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's that, but I would also say that it's Vrsaljko and Vida are both sort of trying to make a play on the ball because it's dropped to that back post, and I do think as a result, Subasic is screened a little bit, so I think he sees it late, and that's why he doesn't do as well as he obviously does later on in the game.
I was going to say, from 12 yards out, he's much, much better. All right, so 2 minutes later, Croatia have equalised, and it's still just a wild, wild game, right? There is all sorts of, I want to say, high adrenaline, panicky defending from Denmark. And I think it sort of starts with Knudsen again. Yep. Can he just more or less slice a clearance?
Yep. He basically, it goes to him, he messes it up, it goes behind, now it's in a foot race, and then he's trying to make up for it, and I think he ends up getting megged by, it might be Vrsaljko again, or it could be Rebic.
It's Rebic. I think Rebic runs at him, and Rebic really was the star of this game for me. We'll talk a lot more about him as we go. I think Rebic gets him to open up, megs him, puts Vrsaljko in behind, then Vrsaljko fires it in, then doesn't a Croatian player clear it into a teammate's face?
Dalsgaard tries to clear it, and he hits it right into Andreas Christensen's face.
Comedy, right? Then it drops to Mario Mandzukic, who I think this goal is much more impressive on replay. It does what I'm going to call a swivel volley.
Yeah.
He swivels 180 degrees and strikes the ball as he goes to score it past Kasper Schmeichel.
And it's very impressive because the ball is behind him, and so he kind of has to reach around, get his leg around it, and then fall through with a volley. But it's also interesting because we rewatched it. I still can't say this with 100% confidence, but we think he touches it twice. That he volleys it into the ground on the first touch with the outside or inside of his heel, basically.
Yeah.
And then as he follows through on the volley, he gets the ball again, and that's when he makes the second contact. But that's why there's a little bit of a weird delay almost from the first time he kicks it to the ball heading into the goal.
And then things settle down.
Yeah.
Then things settle down in this game, and I think it's mostly Denmark's fault / to Denmark's credit.
Yeah. I mean, I think both teams, after these opening couple minutes, it's not the way either one of them thought it would go, and I'm not sure it's the way either one of them wanted it to go. Because certainly they scored, but it feels very frenetic. It's kind of all over the place. There's lots of mistakes early, and I think everybody is content to slow it down and sort of make sure that they get into the right rhythms.
Yep.
But I think then you're letting Denmark, if you're Croatia, get into that kind of two banks of four, theoretically a 4-4-1-1, but a lot of times a 4-4-2.
Eriksson underneath, who was it this time?
Cornelius
started. Yes.
Yeah. And then for Croatia, I think they also, because of those opening few minutes, I think they didn't want to overcommit. They didn't want to send too many numbers forward and risk getting caught on a counter, but also that's what Denmark want to do. They want to sit deep and break. Yeah. They have the pace and the size to do that.
And they kept doing the thing where they bang it long, or not long like aimless long, but they bang it direct to, say, Yusuf Poulsen or to Cornelius, and they just chest it back or head it back for Christian Eriksen to try and do something.
Yeah.
But often he would shoot wide or not actually finish.
Yeah. And so if you're Croatia,
that was the game, right?
Yeah, you don't want to commit too many numbers forward because you risk that long ball over the top. Big man brings it down, a couple touches, and suddenly Denmark are in. So you keep the numbers back a little bit more. It's a bit more conservative game plan. And then I think both teams kind of settled into that rhythm for pretty much the entire game.
Until we nearly had a winner from the penalty spot in extra time, ? It was, right?
Yes,
in extra time. There was a moment where Krondelli, the Danish midfielder, miscontrols it. Luka Modric is on it like a shot. Luka Modric takes, 2 touches before he puts Rebic through on goal? I think it's one to control, then swivels around, then one to split the 2 Danish defenders. Rebic is through. Rebic is one-on-one with Kasper Schmeichel with the aforementioned goalscorer, Mathias Jorgensen, behind him. He goes around the keeper. Jorgensen's still with him. I think Jorgensen just makes a desperate slide tackle and brings Rebic down.
I mean, yeah, that's what happens.
That is what happens, right?
He gets a yellow, then there's a penalty. And I think by the rules of the game, the way they've been changed, it is a correct decision because Jorgensen they're in the box, and it's basically he's trying to make a play on the ball, I think. So then the new rules are, yes, it's a penalty, he gets a yellow, but you don't do the double jeopardy punishment.
Is it called the double jeopardy rule?
I doubt that.
Or is it just colloquially called double jeopardy?
I
think we should get into this for a second because so many people tweeted and asked, why isn't that a red? Because it's a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. The new rule is that if it's a penalty kick, it won't also be a red if you were making a genuine attempt to play the ball. So if Jorgensen had punched Rebic in the face, yes, it'd be a penalty kick and he'd get a red for, say, violent conduct.
Or Carlos Sanchez blocking the ball with his arm. You can't say that's a legal attempt to play the ball.
Right, but because Jorgensen, I genuinely believe he's just desperately slide tackling, hoping he can get something on it, hoping maybe he can pull off a miracle tackle. That's an attempt to play the ball, even if it's a clumsy and a bad one. So I think, according to how the rules are, this is all done correctly.
I have a few things to say. The first is that we had a few people tweet to say, "Oh, he definitely got the ball." No, he didn't. I think
he wasn't far off on the replay,
and that is not the same thing as getting the ball.
I agree. But yeah, he was almost there.
I mean, maybe the bottom of his studs grazed the ball, but I think that's being generous. I think if you watch the replay,
he got up shouting, "Risdon! I Risdoned it! Risdon!"
Well, no, that's the second thing. He doesn't get up. He stays seated down, looking at the ground. I think he absolutely thinks he's got a red card coming, and you don't see him protest
because it's new for the players as well.
It's Schmeichel who gets up and protests and get in the referee's face. No, Jorgensen stays down and waits, and then I think has a little bit of a look like, that's a yellow? Okay. And I do think
I'll take it.
And I do think at first I thought he's just trying to take him out. I agree, you're right, that I think he is theoretically trying to make a play on the ball, or enough.
What else can you do at that point?
Yeah,
right?
Or enough that it is probably the new rule where it should be a yellow, but it still feels wrong to me because it still feels like in this moment I don't think he's going to get him. I don't think there's any way that tackle is ever going to be. He goes through because even if he does get the ball, which again I don't think he does, before he does that, he has already hit Rebic 3 different times on the way to getting the ball. He goes through, he clips him once as Rebic is running, then he gets him big time, then he gets him again before he even comes close to getting the ball. Yeah. Then I think he gets him a 4th time, and it just feels to me like he's kind of taking him out there. Maybe he's made a play on the ball, but I think the biggest thing is he's just trying to stop an obvious goal. For me, that should have been a red, even if the rules say no.
Does it only not within these rules, though?
No,
right?
I guess that's what I mean. Sorry, I was trying to finish quickly. I think what I was trying to say is basically that I know it should be a yellow, but to me that feels weird because then Modric misses the pen.
That's
and
what
suddenly,
I'm saying. Does it only feel that way because the penalty kick is saved, and
Probably.
so in the end Denmark are unscathed, right?
Yeah.
Apart from Jorgensen's yellow. I mean, that's a great resolution for that sequence is for Denmark to only have a yellow card and not concede a goal. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and it really did for a moment. It felt like Suarez against Ghana that he makes an intentional play. In this case, Suarez obviously gets the red card because the rules hadn't even changed then. But then
for those who don't remember, in 2010, Suarez handballs on the line, saves it, takes the red card. And then Uruguay saved the penalty.
Yeah, Gian misses. But then the key thing for me was that Gian misses that penalty. Then they go to penalty shootout, and Gian makes his penalty. And it felt like if you'd done that before, this wouldn't be an issue. Mm-hmm. And Modric, in this case, misses this penalty, makes his in the shootout. It felt very similar, but obviously the outcome ends up being different.
But it's worth underlining that the reason this double jeopardy rule was introduced is that if things had gone according to plan, then, or if things had progressed as they used to, then Denmark would concede a goal from the penalty spot and would be down to 10 men. So it's essentially game over, man, game over. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they changed the rule. Yeah? All right, enough on that?
I think so. Yeah. I think so, because again, I'm not trying to say...
Let's hope we don't have to have this conversation again.
We probably will. Because again, I'm not trying to say that like the ref got this wrong. I'm not trying to say that like the rules were utilized or interpreted incorrectly. It just felt strange to me that I don't think Jorgensen necessarily cared whether or not he got the ball. I think he's trying to break up the play.
Oh, I disagree. I think he's hoping to get a miracle slide tackle, poke the ball away, and then run around.
But I think that's my feeling. Sorry to keep going with this, but like if your goal is a miracle, you know it's not a high chance you're doing that, and at worst, you've knocked the guy over. And there's just a weird feeling in there. Maybe it is just because my entire life that's been a red card, and now it isn't, so it just feels weird.
Slow to adapt to change.
Maybe I am. I fear change, much like Wayne's World.
I don't like new things. All right, but it goes to penalty kicks.
Yeah.
Really dramatic penalty kicks. I'm sort of, I don't have notes on the penalties. I know that you do. So I do know from memory, obviously, Croatia win it on the last kick. Did you spot any interesting patterns or anything from this shootout?
Yes, I did. I thought interesting is in the eye of the beholder, I suppose, so grain of salt there. I thought it was interesting that the goalkeepers dove the same way literally every time. Like, if Subasic dove to his right, the next one, Schmeichel dove the same way. Like, it really is. I don't know if that's intentional. It was just a weird pattern.
Like they copied each other?
I mean, well, it would be, I guess, Schmeichel following what Subasic did.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's intentional or just the way they chose to dive.
Yeah. Sometimes these are just accidental patterns, right?
Yeah. And then the other one I did find interesting was that they all, with the exception of Kjær, not Kvist, Kvist obviously out, Kjær's was a rocket to the top corner.
Danish captain top corner?
Yeah. Almost every other penalty was on the ground or very low. And it was interesting because I think I was just talking about taking penalties before and how you always want to hit them on the ground. You don't want to give the keeper that opportunity to be a full stretch, and maybe it slides underneath him, but if you hit it medium height, it's saved. There were a few saves off the ground. It was excellent goalkeeping from both Subasic and Schmeichel.
So what was the key to this being a Croatia win? I'm asking because my memory is actually a little hazy.
I think it was just that the Croatian players, they number one, I think they spotted that Schmeichel was leaving early. Both goalkeepers were definitely coming off their line. Probably more than they should have.
Because they just always do, right?
Yeah.
This is one of the things we have to live with.
I think so, but I think it starts with, I can't remember which one it was who, maybe it was Kramaric who stopped, like doesn't stop, but he slows that run up, and Schmeichel dives. It was Kramaric. And then Schmeichel gets up and is very frustrated because you can delay your run. What did we find out? That it was basically you can't just stop as you hit the ball?
The only thing you can't do is feint. But I don't mean pass out. I mean, you can't fake the shot, right? So you can't run up, get to the ball, fake right and then let the keeper dive and then go left, as an example. Like you can stop in the run-up, you can slow the run-up, you can do the weird Simon Zaza thing, you can do whatever you want. You just can't get to the ball and fake a shot and then take your shot, which is not what Kramaric, it's not what Kramaric does. Kramaric just delays, Schmeichel goes early, so he puts it the other side.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. And so I think then it did feel like Croatian players, number one, started to look for what Schmeichel was doing. I think they tried to delay as much as they could. Another point that I thought was pretty interesting, forgive me because my pronunciation, as we know, is not great. Eoin is...
Owen.
Okay. Owen O'Callaghan. Or something like that, approximating that on Twitter. I'll retweet it. Just on the Modric penalty, high-profile takers, including Messi, Ronaldo, Sigurdsson, and now Modric, have all put pens to non-natural side for right-footers, and all have missed 3 saves and 1 off target. It did seem like Modric, I believe, corrected that in this penalty shootout.
Yes.
And I think other penalty takers did the same, where they went to the more natural side where you would aim.
You mean Modric corrected it from his miss in extra time?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. That makes more sense.
It does. In fact, I know he did. He might have gone right down the middle for his second one, but for his first one, he's taking with his right foot. The natural one would be to put it back to like your left side if you're the taker. Modric opened up, put it to his right. Schmeichel caught the ball. Or at least covered the ball and didn't let it spill for a rebound. It's
pretty rough that Schmeichel was the hero, right? He caught Modric's first penalty in extra time, and yet it's Subasic who is the penalty shootout hero because his team won. We saw so many shots of Peter Schmeichel, his dad, his famous dad, celebrating once when he swore and had to cut away real fast. So that tells you how well Kasper Schmeichel did and still ended up on the losing team.
And to steal a joke from Real Salt Lake from 2014, I'm going to guess that Leicester City have disconnected their phone lines and their fax machine, because I have a feeling that maybe some people are going to come inquiring about the availability of Kasper Schmeichel.
That's interesting. All right, so going forward, we know that one quarterfinal is going to be France-Uruguay. Another quarterfinal is going to be... Russia-Croatia, which, weirdly, you've got to start picturing this now. Either Russia or Croatia will be in the World Cup semi-final. Either Russia or Croatia will be in the World Cup semi-final. I want to let that sink in a little bit.
It's strange, and I do think that if England get past Colombia,
don't tempt me.
There's some things to look forward to if you're English, potentially.
Let's not move beyond that.
I think
just yet.
I'm so tempted just to go all Tuesday. In, just to frustrate you. I think they've got it wrapped up, Daryl. I think World Cup final or bust.
I move that we table that discussion until at least Tuesday.
It's coming home
at the earliest. All right, we'll talk England-Colombia on Tuesday. Before we preview Monday's round of 16 games, quick mention for an organisation that is not a sponsor today, but we want to shout them out anyway. The Athletic. Taylor and I have been writing for them. There is great content at The Athletic. It is a subscription sports site. If you want to support the Total Soccer Show, one great way to do it is subscribe to The Athletic. Go to theathletic.com/TSS World Cup. You'll get 40% off your subscription. They will know that you came to The Athletic via Taylor and I. And we'll also, some of that money will work its way back into our pockets in writing fees, right? So it's a nice circle of life type situation.
Cosign.
All right. Theathletic.com/TSS World Cup.
I'm glad I could be helpful there.
You certainly were. You were the best one there. Let's talk about the Monday round of 16 games. There is a big one. It's 10 a.m. on Monday. It's the round of 16 game between Brazil and Mexico. At 2 p.m. it is Belgium, Japan. Let's start where I think the most excitement is.
All right.
10 a.m. Brazil, Mexico.
And we'll go, I guess, home side first. We'll go Brazil first. The big story, I guess.
Why Brazil the home side?
I think because they finished top of their group.
Oh, so just the way it's listed.
The seeding, they're the home team.
Yeah.
In FIFA video game, that would matter. Not so much here. For Brazil, they've already announced Chichi has already released his lineup. And the only big difference would be Marcelo not starting, still dealing with, I guess, the back issues. So instead, it will be Felipe Luis. And we kind of think that that's maybe a good thing for Brazil.
Much as we love Marcelo, we did notice that when Felipe Luis played left back behind Neymar at left wing, Felipe Luis kind of kept him on his game a bit more. A lot more like clapping, like, hey, stop step overs, maybe pass the ball, let's move it on. I think Felipe Luis might be a good influence on Neymar.
I agree, but I also think he's a bit more focused on the defensive work first, then helping out and kind of facilitating the attack. But what I think he won't do is get caught too far forward on a consistent basis, the way, say, Joshua Kimmich did against Mexico in their first game. So I think maybe looking at those fullbacks staying back a little bit more and preventing Mexico from having that sort of Chicharito lays it off, and then the wide outlets down the channel. I think that will be something Brazil will be looking towards.
So what do you think, this is hard, right, because we don't really know the answers, but we know that Juan Carlos Osorio, the Mexico coach, will be planning for this game. He likes to really figure out what the opposition does and find ways for his team to exploit it, and then he selects a team and a plan accordingly. Is there anything that we think Juan Carlos Osorio might be looking at?
I mean, again, we don't really know because Juan Carlos Osorio is Juan Carlos Osorio.
But it's fun to guess, right?
I would say this. With Hector Moreno suspended, you're going to have Ayala starting at center back alongside Salcedo. I don't know if he's going to want to rely on sort of a bunker approach to deal with Brazil because that has a possibility of getting pulled apart. They haven't played that much together. So I wonder maybe, and we've heard him talk about how they want to dispute possession and have possession of their own.
Yeah, that's what he said in today's press conference previewing this game. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that means more players being involved in the interior of the field to try to block off the options of Brazil's midfield linking up with the attack, and then sort of putting that pressure on, say, Casemiro, Paulinho, Fernandinho, Coutinho, whoever is one of that kind of that midfield three.
Oh, we know what it's going to be because it's the same starting 11. It's going to be Casemiro holding, Coutinho, and Paulinho.
Yeah.
Those are your starting three for Brazil.
And so I think if you can maybe cause them problems, cause them stress, put them under pressure quickly and often, you might be able to disrupt a little bit of that possession. And then I think the other thing for them would be make sure you track Paulinho making those late runs through.
That is a big defensive thing, right? It's a big thing for Brazil is if they're struggling to break you down, the one way they find their way through, they did this against Serbia, I believe, in the final group stage game, is a late run from Paulinho. He has become correctly famous for the late arrival in the box. That's how they got their first goal against Serbia. So I think that could be as simple as just having one of the other midfielders, say it's Herrera or Guardado, just being aware that Paulinho is going to make that darting run. And I would argue go with him rather than try and pass him off to a centre-back, because I think he exploits, if a centre-back's distracted, he exploits the gap between them.
And I think that if we can watch it either like the normal camera or tactical cam, that might give us a good indication as to how prepared Mexico are for this game when it comes to what they do with Gabriel Jesus. Because although he has not been although he has not been the consistent goal scorer for Brazil, and there's been that debate about should it be Jesus or should it be Firmino?
There hasn't, though, has there?
No, there hasn't been, because
just among Liverpool fans there's been that debate.
Yeah, maybe some other fans too, but I think Jesus' movement has been key to what Brazil are doing. He tries to pull center backs apart. He keeps them kind of on their toes all the time. They're focused on him. They're not looking at those runs. They're not looking at options coming down the channel. So I think how the Mexican center backs, the Mexican defensive midfielders focus on Gabriel Jesus or don't focus on him the way we've seen, say, Sweden do, where it's just sort of like, yeah, sure, go run around, whatever you want to do. We're staying central. We're making sure nothing else kind of comes to the middle when we vacate space.
Oh, so maybe Mexico take a lesson from Sweden in how they dealt with Mexico and take that to Brazil.
The
thing that interests me, though, is Osorio's comment of we're going to dispute possession, we're going to have numeric superiority, and we're going to have the ball. I think when you see Mexico have the ball, it's going to be very interesting to see if they are capable of establishing sort of dominance and being the team that has the ball for long stretches. I think that's easier said than done against this Brazil team with guys like Casemiro coming after you.
I mean, that's certainly the case because of that counterattack that they have and how swiftly they can counterattack and interplay in the counterattack.
Got to be careful.
But no one has really tried to go at Brazil so far. I think the closest we've seen was maybe Switzerland on a few occasions in their opening game, and that finished 1-1. Or was that their second game? I
First
forget.
game. The opening game in the group was Brazil-Switzerland.
There we go.
1-1.
Not the Costa Rica game. But either way, it would be interesting to see if Mexico can kind of take the game to them, how Brazil respond to not having the ball.
Do you know what? Fagner, the replacement right back. So Dani Alves is injured, so Fagner was in the squad. Then Danilo, who's the starting right back, was injured, so now Fagner is starting. He's not a bad player, but he's not a Champions League player, right? He plays domestically. He plays for Corinthians. I think he's like an old, not friend, but just a guy that Chichen knows, right? He has not been tested at this World Cup. He has probably never had a Chucky Lozano dribble at him. So that could be one of the big tests, is if Lozano starts on the left for Mexico, you see him getting to go one-on-one versus Fagner, that could be a very interesting matchup.
It could be. I still stand by my We're on the Mexican Soccer Show. My prediction was like a late winner from Brazil. It finishes 2-1.
Yeah.
I still kind of stand by that just because I think in the past, Brazil under, say, Dunga, it was more so like, we're Brazil, we'll figure it out. It was a little bit of that mentality. I think Chichi has multiple plans and multiple approaches to deal with what Mexico might throw at them.
So maybe Casemiro helping Fagner out a little bit?
Yeah, or just maybe changing out the personnel to maybe go to more defensive or maybe try to get more possession higher up the field. I could just see them having ways to deal with what Juan Carlos Osorio may throw at them. Yeah. Then again, it's Juan Carlos Osorio, so he may start 6 forwards up top. Who knows?
On the scarier side for Mexico, we thought against Sweden, or at least I did, that the fullbacks did not look the most comfortable. No. Right? Gallardo had a couple of rough touches. Alvarez, the right back, lost people a couple times. Yeah. This time they're up against Neymar and Willian.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Those are 2 pretty good players.
They certainly are.
Yes, and in fact, it will be the aforementioned Fagner up against Neymar, right? Fagner the right back, Neymar on the left.
You mean Alvarez, the right back? Because Fagner plays for Brazil.
Excuse me. Yeah, Fagner. Yeah, you're right. My bad.
Unless we're reviewing Brazilian practice
But
sessions.
yes, it is Alvarez who had the own goal with the handball, then lost the man. Yeah, so how he deals with Neymar, I think he'll probably require a little bit of assistance.
I've just remembered when we were on the Mexican soccer show, one thing we said was, maybe we thought a key for Mexico is don't have too many men dragged towards Neymar. Because the good thing, when Neymar's on, the thing he'll do is draw one person in, then 2 people in, then 3 people in while he's doing rolls over the top of the ball. And then when he's sort of dragged you towards him like a magnet, then he releases it and exploits the space. So that's a key thing, right? Because I agree with you that maybe Alvarez versus Neymar might be rough. But also you don't want to send everybody over there. So I think there's a weird balance that's going to have to be struck between protecting yourself from Neymar, but not paying too much attention to him, like, for example, Fox Sports do.
There we go. All right, so that's Brazil-Mexico, 10 a.m. That's
yes, 10 a.m. on Fox.
2 p.m.
Are you certainly telling me we're moving on to the next game?
A little bit. Yeah. 2 p.m., Belgium v. Japan. I'm going to say the less heralded game on the day.
I think this is, with all due respect to Japan, they're probably the biggest underdog in terms of who went through to the round of 16. Yep. So this is maybe the biggest mismatch. This is maybe the game where there's a clear favourite and the favourite is Belgium. Is that fair? Or have I not paid enough attention to Japan?
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I mean, it was interesting. Japan are the ones who, like, their coach apologized for the final 10 minutes of that game because it was basically essentially, we are happy to lose this game if it means we still advance.
But they did it right in terms of they did what was needed to be done to go through. So no problem there for me.
But I think you are correct. I would say this is probably the biggest mismatch. The biggest underdog story would be Japan. One player who's acknowledged that would be Dries Mertens, who came out and pointed out that the USA caused way bigger problems than they thought they would in 2014. Wales, again, like everybody thought, Belgium v. Wales. That's like a foregone conclusion. Wales eliminate Belgium. So I think
this is the test for Belgium, right? Is to go into a game where you're more fancied, but make sure to get it done efficiently.
But more fancied. But historically, they've choked in these moments or not performed to their level of expectation. So I think there is that element of pressure on them. Whereas you can make that argument that with Japan, they were not expected to get out of the group. They have done that, so they've kind of already overachieved. So now it's they're playing with house money at this point.
Is it the last for Japan? It's sort of the last hurrah in many ways for Kagawa.
I think so.
And Honda, right? So okay, let's think of it this way. Belgium, we think, will line up in some sort of 3-4-3/3-4-2-1. Right? You can almost guarantee that it's Lukaku up top. Right, he's going to cause trouble for Yoshida and co. It's Japanese defenders. Then flanking him or just behind him, Eden Hazard on the left and Dries Mertens on the right. There's 2 dribblers coming at you the whole time. I'm sort of painting the picture of a scary Belgium, essentially. Central midfield, I think Axel Witsel will be the more holding, probably, but definitely alongside him, Kevin De Bruyne pulling the strings. These are all the things Japan has to watch out for. The only part of Belgium that isn't strong, I would argue, are the wing-backs.
Yeah. I would have said centre-backs, but now they have their full complement back. That means Thomas Vermaelen and Vincent Kompany eligible to play.
I think they'll field the ultimate weapon, which is Vincent Kompany at centre-back, Vertonghen on the left, and Alderweireld on the right. That is Belgium's premium centre-back offering.
But that leaves the wing-backs, as you're saying. So Meunier and specifically Carrasco, who is not a wing-back. He prefers to be much more of an attacking player.
He's an attacking left winger or an attacking central midfielder, right?
And we've seen on a couple different occasions in the group stage that he can be caught too far forward. He can let his man run by him because he just drifts and focuses on the attacking options or just ball watches a little bit. I think that is an area of vulnerability that Japan could certainly exploit, especially given, say, Osako could start. I mean, he's known to
forward.
He can move into those spaces, occupy, hold up play, let somebody run off. That could certainly cause problems.
Ooh, okay. You've also got on the other side Thomas Meunier, who is a fine-ish player, but I'm sure Belgium would have preferred...
Ringing endorsement.
I'm just saying, if they had a Dani Alves type, then he'd be starting there instead by a distance, right?
You think?
I always think of Thomas Meunier. Maybe I don't show him the proper respect, but I think of him as more of a placeholder in this Belgium team, as he's the only one that is somewhat defensive and can play right wing-back. Mm-hmm. He could be in for it, because you have got Inouye on the left, dribbling inside on his right foot. He's very good at exploiting little gaps. If you imagine the way Belgium lines up, you just look at the team sheet, there's always a gap when you play wing-backs between the right wing-back if he gets forward and the right centre-back. Inouye, the right-footed left winger, would love to dribble into that space.
Yep.
And then you've got, is it Nagatomo, the left back, loves to get forward.
Yep.
Loves to get forward. Bleach blonde hair. Look out for him. They could easily overload Thomas Meunier's left side on, I'm going to guess, on a counter-attack.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, and the other thing worth noting, there's been much made of the fact that Belgium rested so many players against England in the final game. Japan rested a fair few players of their own. Osako came in as a second-half substitute. Hasebe did not start. Kagawa did not start. Inouye did not start. So they've got players who are going to be very important for them who have a bit more rest than you might have expected.
That's interesting. I assumed that was just the lineup they thought would get their job done against Poland, but maybe it was a bit of tiredness and a bit of rotaciones.
Things can be two things, Daryl. Things can be two things. All right, so that game is 2 p.m. On Fox. We will, of course, be back tomorrow to review both games. Let's hope for a little more excitement than we got today. That would be ideal.
Penalty shootouts are fine, but I prefer lots of action between kickoff and penalty shootout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
All right, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
They're bringing it home. Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. Please check out worldcupcomedytour.com. Catch us on tour after the World Cup. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts if you can. Send us up the charts if you can. But thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.